This is probably one of the most dramatic, I think, seasons in our history. We opened episode 1 with Amy's mother passing away, and 14 years later, we cut to episode 1401, and we're opening with her husband passing away. And so you are dealing with high emotional stakes. And it's important when you're dealing with that in our show is to do it authentically, because this is not a soap opera. This is not cardboard characters that we can just do whatever we want with. These are real characters. We see them as real people. The audience sees them as real people. So we have to do this in a really authentic, real way. And it's important that we reflect back to an audience what many audience members deal with. And grief is part of life. It's part of reality, and family deal with that around the world. And I think for them to be in a world that they're comfortable in, with characters that they love, and to come along on a journey that deals with grief, it's an important story to tell, because you want to reflect a positive results at the end of a tragedy.
Right from the start, when we knew that Graham wasn't going to be involved, the only real way of writing that character out was for him to die. There was no way you would want to see Amy and Ty divorce, or him move away and you never saw him again. It was just not viable. So we knew that that's what we had to do.
We had established that relationship, frankly, it's this close to true love as you might get on television. So we knew authentically there was no way that you could pull Ty away from Amy and Lindy by his own volition. And that only left one option. So the character had to pass away. And we knew that was the only way to be true to Ty's character. And in this situation, we had to be true to his character, and we had to be true to Amy's character. So there was only one path. And we also knew that was going to be a tragic event, and we also knew that was going to be extremely painful for the audience.
Storyline was challenging, obviously. And Graham himself was very much a part of the plan of how we would do it. We also didn't want to dwell on the actual death itself. That's why we leapt ahead a year, so that most of those unspeakable emotions and the difficulty dealing at all had already gone by. So that skip ahead a year was very full of purpose. And it helped, because then Amy's at a point that she's remembering things that are special to her, and hopefully special to the audience as well.
So in 14 years, this has probably been the biggest creative challenge that we've had to deal with. And, when a core member of your family, in this case, a cast member, needs to move on and needs to pursue dreams outside of your world, and you need to support that, you now have to look at how do you protect the show and how do you protect the audience, frankly, in terms of you have an audience that's invested 13 seasons or 13 years of viewing this show and these characters, and they have to be real and it has to be authentic.
I remember there was a scene where he was building the jumping ring out in the woods for Amy. And part of the scene required him to lift some logs and put them into place. And with each take, there was a whole crew there ready to move those logs. But he did it himself. He kept doing it. And I asked myself, is this going to last? Is he going to keep doing this? Or is it eventually is he going to become like, most other people who let the crew do their job? And it was interesting because as a character, that told me a lot about him. And he never changed from that. He was always a pleasure to work with. He was never a diva. He was always upbeat. He always knew his lines. He was always ready to perform. He was just a pleasure to work with.
The boy in the loft. It was amazing to see Graham grow as an actor and as a human being over the course of his time with the show. He was a very young man when he came, and it was wonderful to watch the growth of that character from this sort of rowdy kid living in the barn or in the attic to Amy's her husband and father of their child. He's a remarkable guy, and he brought a sense of gravity to the role that was wonderful, also a sense of sort of joy. It was wonderful to work with him.
It's been an amazing journey, doing a show for 14 years, and I could talk about any cast member and the journey that we've been on with each individual person. And for Graham specifically, he, you remember the sort of bad boy image he had in season 1, and he ends season 13 as a veterinarian, a father, and this mature man who's turned into a wonderful partner and parent.
I think the Heartland family will miss time most in those, the scenes, the episodes where we have family get-togethers, where there's a wedding, where there's a naming ceremony, where there's, just the usual round the table dinners that the show is kind of famous for, the Heartland dinner scenes. There's a gap, that chair is empty. And the loft will never be the loft again. The house that never got finished will always be that platform sitting in the middle of that beautiful meadow where the wild herd of horses are. I think they'll miss him as much as the viewer. And I hope that we can be really honest with that. And not shy away from showing how someone is missed years after this happens. So that's what we'll strive to do.